45 minutes. That's how long Olivia Reed had been sitting alone at a table for two at Le Ciel, the most exclusive restaurant in the city. 45 minutes of pretending to study the menu, of glancing at her phone for a message that never came, of feeling the slow, suffocating weight of countless pitying stares. Her makeup was flawless, a brave mask of composure she didn't truly possess. The elegant emerald green dress, a splurge she'd justified as the perfect outfit for what she believed would be the most important night of her life, clung to her with a grace that now felt like a cruel mockery. Her hands betrayed her, trembling in her lap as she tried to ignore the sympathetic glances from the couple at the next table. Tonight was supposed to be everything. The culmination of 2 years with Ethan Ross. A steady, comfortable relationship that had become the predictable rhythm of her days. She had pictured it so clearly. A small velvet box appearing beside dessert, a bent knee, a future finally falling into place. Her phone buzzed against the pristine white tablecloth. Her heart lurched with desperate, foolish hope. It wasn't an apology or an explanation about traffic. It was a guillotine. "Sorry, Liv. I can't do this anymore. You deserve better than what I can give. Don't wait for me." The words blurred as tears threatened to spill. He had ended 2 years of her life with a single text, while she sat here, dressed for a proposal. He had severed their future with a coward's goodbye. "Ma'am?" The waiter's voice was gentle, but it landed like an accusation. This was his third approach, his face a careful blend of professionalism and discomfort. "Will you be ordering this evening?" Every eye in the restaurant seemed trained on her. She was the spectacle. The woman stood up. The fool in the beautiful green dress. The humiliation pressed against her chest, stealing her breath. "No," she managed, her voice cracking. "I'll be leaving." She reached for her handbag, her only thought to escape, to vanish into the city night, and let the heartbreak swallow her in private. But as she rose, a tall figure appeared beside her table, blocking her path. A strikingly handsome man in a charcoal suit so impeccably tailored it seemed part of him. He held 2 flutes of champagne, bubbles dancing in the light like tiny captured stars. "Sorry I'm late, darling," he said, his voice a smooth, confident baritone, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. Then he leaned in, his presence warm and steady, pushing back the cold wave of shame. His whisper was meant only for her. "Play along," he murmured, his deep hazel eyes locking onto hers. "You don't deserve this." Before she could fully process the audacity of the moment, Lucas Montgomery, though she didn't know his name yet, had slid into the seat across from her, placing a glass of champagne in front of her with a gentle touch that sent a spark through her fingertips. He raised his own glass, his gaze never leaving her face. "He's going to regret losing you," he said, not as an empty platitude, but with quiet, unshakable certainty that made her shattered heart skip. Without waiting for her to reply, he caught the waiter's eye. "We'll have the tasting menu for 2, he announced calmly, commandingly, "and keep the champagne coming." He turned back to her, the faintest smile touching his lips. "Let's show this restaurant you don't need anyone to shine." Olivia stared at him, caught in a dizzying storm of shock, confusion, and the tiniest flickering spark of something she hadn't felt all night. "Before you begin, please take a moment to relax and enjoy the story. If you find it engaging, do me a small favor. Subscribe, like, and share to support the channel. I'd also love to hear from you, so feel free to comment and tell me where you're watching from. Your support means a lot and helps grow our community." The first course arrived like a small work of art. Seared scallops arranged on a bed of delicate foam, garnished with edible flowers that looked too beautiful to eat. Olivia stared at the plate, her fork hovering, still trying to catch up with the last 20 minutes of her life. Across from her, Lucas ate with easy confidence, as though rescuing humiliated women and ordering tasting menus were simply part of his evening routine. "You're quiet," he said gently, setting his fork down. "Too much champagne, or just too much of me?" Olivia managed a small, shaky laugh. "Both, maybe. I'm still processing the fact that a complete stranger just saved me from the most mortifying moment of my life." "I'm not a complete stranger anymore," he replied, his hazel eyes warm. "I'm Lucas. And you're Olivia. That's a start." She took a tentative bite, the flavors bursting across her tongue: bright lemon, rich butter, a hint of sea salt. For the first time in an hour, she felt her shoulders ease a fraction. "This is incredible," she admitted. "I've never tasted anything like it." "Good," he said. "Then let's keep going." The conversation flowed in a way she hadn't expected. He asked about her students, the funny things they said, the way their faces lit up when they finally understood a story. She told him about the little boy who'd written a 3-sentence essay declaring her the best teacher in the whole entire universe, and Lucas listened with an intensity that made her feel like the most interesting person in the room. He revealed almost nothing about himself, deflecting her questions with gentle humor, but he drew her out effortlessly, making her small, ordinary life sound like something worth telling. When the waiter cleared the plates and brought the next course, Olivia finally found the courage to ask, "Why did you do this? You could have just walked away." Lucas paused, his expression softening. "Because I saw you sitting there, trying so hard to hold it together, and I thought, no one should have to feel that alone in a room full of people." He looked down at his glass, then back at her. "And because there was something in your eyes, not just hurt, defiance. I wanted to see what would happen if someone reminded you that you're worth showing up for." Olivia woke to the insistent buzz of her phone, her heart giving a ridiculous, hopeful leap before reality crashed back. Lucas. But the screen showed 32 unread messages, all from Ethan. A frantic cascade of apologies and pleas that made her stomach twist. "I made a mistake, Liv. Please talk to me. I miss you. I was scared, that's all. I saw the photos online. Who is that guy?" She scrolled through them with a strange detachment, the anger sharp but fleeting, the old heartbreak strangely muted. One night of being truly seen by Lucas had done more to loosen Ethan's hold on her heart than 2 years of his lukewarm affection ever had. She silenced her phone and headed to school, trying to focus on her third graders' eager faces. During her planning period, she returned to her classroom to find a sleek black envelope on her desk. Her name was written in elegant, masculine script. Inside were 2 VIP tickets to the city's exclusive modern art exhibit, the very one she'd mentioned in passing during dinner with Lucas. Tucked beside them was a small card. "For the woman who makes ordinary days feel extraordinary. Lucas." Her breath caught. He had remembered. And he had found a way to reach her without asking for her number. That evening, nerves buzzing, she arrived at the museum. She told herself she was there for the art, but her eyes scanned the crowd for him. When she spotted him across the room, her stomach plummeted. He wasn't alone. A stunning woman in a sleek black dress clung to his arm, laughing at something he'd said, her hand resting possessively on his sleeve. She was everything Olivia wasn't: polished, confident, clearly at home in this glittering world. The sight hit like a punch. Had it all been pity? A momentary distraction? She turned to leave, cheeks burning, but it was too late. Lucas's gaze found hers across the crowded gallery. The genuine joy that lit his face was unmistakable. He excused himself immediately, striding toward her with purpose. "Olivia," he said, his smile bright enough to eclipse the room's lights. "You came." She forced a smile, but it felt brittle. "I didn't realize you were with someone." His expression shifted to concern. "That's Victoria, my VP of operations." It's a business event. Nothing more. Before she could respond, a hand clamped around her arm, hard. We need to talk. Now. Ethan stood there, face flushed with anger and entitlement. His grip tightened, pulling her toward him. Lucas's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The warm, charming man vanished, replaced by something cold and dangerous. He stepped forward, placing himself between them, his voice low and lethal. Take your hand off her. She's not going anywhere with you. Ethan's eyes widened, but he didn't release her. Who the hell are you? I've known her for 2 years. And in one night, Lucas countered, his tone dropping to a chilling whisper. I've learned more about what she deserves than you ever did. A small crowd began to gather, whispers rippling through the gallery. Olivia felt the familiar wave of humiliation rise, but this time it was laced with something new. Anger. Hot, clarifying anger. She wrenched her arm free, surprising both men. You're right, she said, her voice trembling but clear. You've known me for 2 years. 2 years of canceled plans. 2 years of you calling my dreams cute. 2 years of making me feel like my feelings were inconvenient. She took a steadying breath, the words pouring out like water breaking through a dam. You didn't leave me at that restaurant, Ethan. You set me free. He stood frozen, mouth opening and closing without sound. Without another glance at him, Olivia turned and walked toward the exit, head high. Lucas followed a half step behind, a silent, protective presence. Ethan remained in the middle of the gallery, alone, as the crowd slowly dispersed. Outside, the night air felt cleansing against her heated skin. She was trembling, not from fear, but from the rush of finally speaking her truth. Are you okay? Lucas asked softly. She let out a shaky laugh. I think I'm better than okay. He stopped her on the sidewalk, expression serious. About Victoria. I believe you, she said quickly. And thank you. For tonight. For everything. He took her hand gently, his thumb brushing her knuckles. I meant what I said. He's going to regret losing you. Olivia looked up at him, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, she believed it might be true. The morning sun spilled golden across the bustling street market, turning everything warm and alive. Olivia had insisted on a normal date, no limousines, no 5-star reservations, just the two of them wandering like ordinary people. Lucas had agreed with surprising enthusiasm, trading his tailored suits for a simple dark sweater and jeans that somehow still looked expensive. They drifted through the stalls, the air thick with the scent of fresh bread, roasted chestnuts, and spices. Lucas watched with genuine fascination as Olivia haggled over a bundle of wildflowers, laughing when the vendor tried to charge him double for the fancy man. He bought them anyway, tucking one behind her ear with a gentleness that made her heart stutter. At the next stall, he insisted on trying a messy street taco, mustard and salsa dripping down his chin. Olivia reached up to wipe it away without thinking, and the easy intimacy of the moment stole her breath. He caught her hand before she could pull away, pressing a quick kiss to her knuckles. You're dangerous when you're being sweet, he murmured. They wandered into her favorite secondhand bookstore next, the kind with creaky wooden floors and towers of books that smelled like old paper and possibility. Olivia lost herself among the shelves, fingers trailing over worn spines, reading snippets aloud in a hushed, reverent voice. Lucas followed quietly, content to watch her come alive. When she turned from a shelf of poetry, she found him at the counter, paying for a tall stack of books, all the ones she'd lingered over, the ones she'd reluctantly set back down. Lucas, no, she protested, rushing over. That's too much. This isn't supposed to be. It's exactly what a normal date should be, he said, a playful glint in his eye as he took the bags from the clerk. Boyfriends buy their girlfriends presents. The word hung between them. boyfriends, girlfriends, casual and monumental all at once. Olivia froze, her heart doing a wild somersault. Lucas realized what he'd said at the same moment. A flush crept up his neck. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to presume. She silenced him by rising on her toes and kissing him. It was soft, quick, perfect. A confirmation rather than a declaration. When she pulled back, his eyes were wide with surprise and quiet delight. They ended the day at a tiny family-run diner in her neighborhood, checkered tablecloths and candles stuck in old wine bottles. They shared a plate of pasta, laughing over nothing, until the elderly owner shuffled over. "Lucas?" The man's eyes widened in recognition. "I haven't seen you since you were a boy. Not since you came in with your parents." The air at the table shifted. Lucas's posture stiffened, the easy warmth draining from his face. The owner mumbled an apology and retreated. Olivia waited, her hand resting near his on the table. She didn't push. After a long silence, Lucas spoke, his voice low and strained. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 20. A drunk driver. It was preventable. The company that employed the driver had cut corners on safety training to save money." He looked at her then, the pain in his eyes raw and unguarded. "I built Montgomery Enterprises to be the opposite of that. Every decision, every policy, people first, employees, customers, always. I wanted to create something that would have saved them." Olivia felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. "That's why you work so hard," she whispered. "It's not about the money. It's about never letting that happen again." He nodded, visibly moved. No one had ever named it so clearly. Her phone buzzed violently on the table. Her mother's name flashed across the screen. Olivia answered, and the voice on the other end was frantic. "Olivia, thank God. Ethan was just here. He showed me these awful tabloid articles about you and this Lucas Montgomery. They say he has a terrible reputation with women, leaves a trail of broken hearts. Honey, what have you gotten yourself into?" Olivia looked up to find Lucas frozen, the vulnerability of moments ago replaced by a haunted, familiar pain. The cheerful warmth of the little diner vanished, replaced by a cold, suffocating silence. The cheerful warmth of the little diner evaporated in an instant. Olivia lowered her phone slowly, her mother's panicked words still echoing in her ears. She looked across the table at Lucas, whose face had gone carefully blank, the same guarded expression she'd glimpsed when the owner mentioned his parents. "Is it true?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Not accusation, but a desperate hope that he would deny it. Lucas didn't flinch. He met her gaze steadily, and that steadiness hurt more than any evasion could have. "What exactly did the article say?" He paid the bill in silence, and the ride back to her apartment was thick with tension. Inside her small living room, he didn't make excuses. Instead, he pulled out his phone and typed his own name into the search bar. The screen filled with garish headlines: "Billionaire Bachelor Strikes Again," "Montgomery's Latest Conquest," photos of him with a revolving door of beautiful women at galas, charity events, yacht parties. Every image was captioned with speculation, every article implying a trail of broken hearts. "After I made my first billion," he said quietly, "the media invented a character for me. Every business dinner with a female colleague became a secret rendezvous. Every smile at a fundraiser became proof of another conquest. It's a narrative. It sells clicks." He looked up, his eyes pleading for her to see the truth. "In the last 5 years, I've had 2 serious relationships. Both ended for the same reason. They fell in love with the myth. The lifestyle, the power, the man on the magazine covers. They couldn't handle the real one who works too much and carries too much grief." Olivia listened, her heart aching for the exhaustion etched into his face. He wasn't a predator. He was prey, hunted by a persona he couldn't escape. She believed him. Deep in her gut, she knew it was true. "I need some time," she said softly. "Not to push you away. Just to think. To talk to my family." He nodded, though a shadow of old pain crossed his features. "Don't let them. Or this." He gestured at the phone. "Decide what you feel for me, Olivia. Please." He left, and the silence in her apartment felt deafening. For 3 days, she kept her distance. Lucas respected it completely. Each morning, a single text arrived. "Thinking of you. I'm here when you're ready." Simple, patient, and somehow that made her miss him more. On the third evening, she sat on her couch, staring at her phone, ready to call him and tell him she was choosing him, ghosts and all. But as she picked it up, a news alert flashed across the screen. Montgomery Enterprises names, Victoria Sterling new COO in surprise move. The accompanying photo showed Lucas and Victoria side by side at a press conference, smiling professionally. The comment section was already alive with speculation about the power couple and their undeniable chemistry. A sharp, unfamiliar pang of jealousy sliced through her, intense enough to steal her breath. In that moment of raw emotion, the truth crashed over her like a wave. She was falling in love with him. Truly, deeply, terrifyingly in love. And it scared her to death. Love was supposed to feel safe, comfortable, like it had with Ethan, even when it was lukewarm. This felt like standing at the edge of a cliff in a storm, thrilling, dangerous, and utterly out of her control. The news of Victoria's promotion only fed the insecurity she'd tried to bury. What if she really wasn't enough for his world? What if the media was right, and she was just another chapter in his story? She set the phone down, hands trembling. The seeds of doubt had taken root, and they were growing fast. Olivia was in the middle of a lively discussion on the secret garden, her third graders debating whether Mary Lennox was brave or just stubborn, when the classroom door creaked open. Every head turned. Lucas Montgomery stood in the doorway, looking utterly out of place in his dark suit among the colorful posters and low tables. In his arms was an enormous bouquet of sunflowers, their bright faces turned toward the light like eager students. He looked only at her, his usual calm confidence replaced by something raw and vulnerable. "I'm so sorry to interrupt," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "But I couldn't wait any longer." A wave of excited whispers and stifled giggles rippled through the class. Phones were already being lifted discreetly. Olivia felt heat flood her cheeks. "Lucas." He walked toward her desk, never breaking eye contact. "You asked me to be real," he began, loud enough for the whole room to hear, but meant only for her. "So here's the truth. I'm terrible at this. I work too much. I have more baggage than most people could carry. And I'm terrified of how I feel about you, because I've never felt this way before." He took a shaky breath. "But you make me want to be better. You make me want to show up, not just for board meetings, but for someone. For you. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." Tears pricked Olivia's eyes. This wasn't a performance. This was Lucas laying his heart bare in the most public, uncomfortable way possible. For her. One of her bolder students whispered loudly, "Miss Reed, you have to talk to him after class." Olivia let out a watery laugh, accepting the vibrant bouquet. "We need to talk," she agreed, looking at him. For real this time. After the final bell, with her students buzzing out the door full of gossip, they walked to a quiet cafe down the street. She set the sunflowers on the table between them and finally voiced the fear that had been gnawing at her. "Our worlds are so different, Lucas. You run an empire. I get excited about finding a $20 bill in an old coat pocket. What if I'm not enough for your world?" He reached across the table, covering her hands with his. What if my world isn't enough for you? He countered gently. You have purpose, passion. You make a difference every single day. Before you, my life was boardrooms and balance sheets. You make me want to read poetry and eat tacos from a truck. You make me want to live, not just acquire. His honesty dismantled the last of her defenses. The walls she'd built around her heart came tumbling down. Okay, she said, a real smile breaking through. Let's try. For real. No more doubts. They left the cafe hand in hand, an official couple at last. That night, as Olivia was getting ready for bed, her phone chimed with an anonymous email. The subject line was one chilling word: proof. Inside were several photos, clearly taken with a long lens. Lucas and a beautiful woman, Victoria, laughing intimately at a dimly lit hotel bar. Another showed them entering an elevator together late at night. The images were framed to look damning, though Olivia knew they could be innocent business moments ripped from context. Below the photos was a single line: "He will never change. Save yourself while you still can." Her hands shook as she stared at the screen. The seed of doubt that had been quietly growing burst into full bloom. The next morning, she met Lucas at his office. He took one look at her face and knew. "Show me," he said quietly. She handed him the phone. His jaw clenched as he scrolled through the images. Anger, cold and controlled, flashed across his features. "This is a manipulation," he said, voice low and tight. "These were taken in Las Vegas during a tech conference. The entire executive team was there. The elevator goes to the rooftop restaurant where we had a dinner meeting with investors." He looked at her, eyes pleading. "It means nothing." Olivia wanted to believe him. Every part of her screamed that the man who'd brought her sunflowers in front of 28 third graders was telling the truth. But the doubt lingered, stubborn and sharp. "Why would someone do this?" she asked. His expression darkened. "Because someone wants to tear us apart. And I have a very good idea who." The anonymous photos were only the beginning. Within days, the leaks began in earnest. Tabloid headlines screamed across every screen: Montgomery's mystery woman, gold digger or genuine, teacher snags billionaire. Is she after his fortune? Sources say Olivia Reed is using Lucas Montgomery for status and money. Blurry photos of them at the museum, the cafe, even the street market appeared everywhere, each one twisted with malicious captions. Anonymous accounts on social media multiplied like weeds, spewing venom. "She's just another opportunist. He'll dump her when he gets bored." "Gold digger alert." The hate wasn't just online, it bled into real life. Strange messages appeared in her school email. A brick crashed through her apartment window one night, wrapped in a note that read, "Leave him alone. You don't belong in his world." The police called it vandalism, but Olivia knew better. Someone wanted her scared. Someone wanted her gone. Lucas's security team moved quickly. "You can't stay here," he said, voice tight with controlled fury as he stood in her tiny living room, glass crunching under his shoes. "It's not safe." "I don't want to run," she protested, but her voice trembled. The weight of the scrutiny was crushing. Every glance from a stranger felt like judgment, every notification a fresh wound. "You're not running," he said softly, taking her hands. "You're staying with me, just until we figure this out. Please." She agreed because the alternative was worse. The penthouse felt different this time. What had once seemed like a magical escape now felt like a gilded cage. The floor-to-ceiling windows that had once offered breathtaking views now made her feel exposed, watched. Lucas's security team patrolled the building like silent shadows. Every time she stepped outside, even to the private terrace, she felt eyes on her. The pressure built slowly, then all at once. Lucas was gone more than he was there. Endless crisis meetings, damage control, board calls that stretched into the early hours. When he was home, he was exhausted, distracted, his phone never far from his hand. Olivia understood why. He was fighting for everything he'd built, but understanding didn't stop the loneliness from creeping in. One night she waited up for him until 2 a.m., dinner cold on the table. When he finally walked through the door, tie loosened, eyes shadowed with fatigue, she couldn't hold it in. "You're never here," she said quietly. "I moved in for safety, but I feel more alone than ever." He stopped, guilt flashing across his face. "I'm trying to fix this. The leaks, the threats, it's all connected to the rival company. If I don't fight back—" "I know," she interrupted, voice cracking. "I know you're protecting your empire, but I'm not sure how much longer I can live like this. Waiting. Wondering if the next headline will be the one that breaks us." He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry," he whispered against her hair. "I hate that this is happening to you because of me." "It's not because of you," she said, tears slipping down her cheeks. "It's because of them. But I need to feel like I'm more than just another crisis you're managing." He held her tighter, as if he could shield her from the storm raging outside their glass walls. "You are," he promised fiercely. "You're everything. I just have to prove it." But as the days stretched into weeks, the pressure only mounted. The public hate grew louder, the threats became more specific. And the distance between them, though they slept in the same bed, felt wider than ever. Olivia stared out at the glittering city lights, wondering how something that had started with hope could feel so suffocating. She loved him. She knew he loved her. But love wasn't enough when the whole world seemed determined to tear them apart. The penthouse felt colder than ever that night. Olivia had waited up again, dinner long gone cold, the city lights mocking her from beyond the glass. When Lucas finally walked through the door at nearly midnight, his shoulders slumped with exhaustion. She couldn't hold it in anymore. "You promised you'd be here tonight," she said quietly, voice trembling. "You promised." He stopped, loosening his tie with weary fingers. "I know. The board meeting ran over. They're panicking about the stock drop. I couldn't just—" "You never can," she cut in, sharper than she intended. "You're always putting out fires, always one crisis away from actually being here. I moved in for safety, Lucas, but I feel more alone in this beautiful cage than I ever did in my own apartment." His eyes flashed with guilt and frustration. "I'm trying to protect everything I've built, everything that keeps thousands of people employed. If I don't fight this, the whole company could collapse. You think I want to be gone?" "I think you're married to your work," she said, the words tasting like poison. Victoria was right. You'll promise the world, but you'll never truly be there. The moment the words left her mouth, regret crashed over her like ice water. Lucas's face went pale, the hurt so raw it stole her breath. "That's not fair," he said, voice dangerously low. "I've been fighting for us every single day. The leaks, the threats, the sabotage attempts. I'm doing this for us." "Are you?" she shot back, tears burning her eyes. "Or are you doing it because it's easier than facing what's right in front of you?" "I'm drowning here, Lucas. I need you, not your empire." He stared at her for a long moment, the silence heavy and broken. Then he grabbed his keys. "I need some air," he said tightly, and walked out. The door closed softly behind him, but the sound echoed like a crack in their fragile foundation. Hours later, Olivia sat curled on the couch, staring at nothing, when her phone rang with an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. "Olivia?" The voice was elegant, fragile, laced with deep sadness. "This is Eleanor Montgomery, Lucas's mother." Olivia sat bolt upright. "His mother?" But he said, "I know what he told you. Eleanor said quietly. It's easier than the truth. When his father died, I fell apart. I couldn't bear the grief. I couldn't watch my son try to hold the world together alone. So I left. I abandoned him when he needed me most. Her voice trembled. I've watched from a distance. He loves you more than he's loved anyone since he lost his father. Please don't let him destroy himself again. He buries himself in work because it's the only thing that's never left him. You're the first person in years who's made him want to truly live. When Lucas returned near dawn, face pale and drawn, Olivia was waiting. She didn't yell. She simply looked at him, eyes soft with painful understanding. I spoke to your mother, she said quietly. The carefully constructed walls around Lucas crumbled. He sank onto the couch opposite her, burying his face in his hands as a ragged sob tore from his chest. He told her everything, the crushing grief, the betrayal of being abandoned by his remaining parent, the way he'd poured every ounce of himself into his work to numb the unbearable pain. I'm so afraid of losing you, he whispered, tears tracking down his face. I'm so terrified of messing this up that I'm losing you anyway. Before she could move to him, his phone buzzed violently, an emergency alert from the company. His face went ashen as he read it. Oh my God, he breathed. There's been an explosion at the main manufacturing plant. People are hurt. I have to go. He stood, the CEO mask snapping back into place, but his hands shook. Olivia rose too, grabbing her coat. I'm going with you. Olivia, no, he protested. It's chaos. It could be dangerous. This is my responsibility. This is what people who love each other do, she said firmly, slipping her hand into his. They show up. For the first time in hours, Lucas looked at her like she was his lifeline. He squeezed her hand, gratitude and fear mingling in his eyes, and together they stepped into the elevator, heading straight into the heart of the storm. The factory site was chaos under floodlights, smoke still curling from twisted metal, emergency crews shouting orders, families huddled in stunned silence. Lucas moved through it like a man possessed, sleeves rolled up, voice steady as he coordinated medical care and spoke to every injured worker by name. Olivia stayed close, helping where she could, handing out blankets, offering quiet words to frightened spouses. Watching him, she saw the truth of what he'd built. Not just a company, but a promise that no family would suffer the way his had. Days later, the investigation delivered the devastating truth. Security footage showed a man accepting a briefcase of cash in a shadowed parking garage. The face was unmistakable. Ethan Ross. He had been paid by Montgomery's chief rival to orchestrate the escalating scandals, the leaks, the threats, the factory sabotage. The rival wanted to tank Lucas's stock, force a hostile takeover, and eliminate the competition. Ethan had been their willing tool, motivated by jealousy and greed. The revelation hit Olivia like a physical blow. Her own past had nearly destroyed the man she loved. She insisted on going to the county jail alone. Lucas wanted to send security, lawyers, anything to shield her, but she refused. I need to face this myself, she said. For me. The visitation room was cold and sterile. Ethan looked diminished behind the thick glass, thinner, eyes hollow. When he picked up the receiver, his voice cracked with false remorse. Liv, I never meant for it to go this far. They approached me. I was angry, hurt. I thought, you thought you could destroy his life and mine because I wouldn't take you back, she said calmly. The words came steady, no longer trembling. You sold stories to tabloids. You endangered lives. You took money to hurt people who never did anything to you. He looked down, excuses dying on his lips. I'm sorry. Olivia studied the man who had once held her heart. The little girl who'd waited for apologies that never came was gone. In her place sat a woman who had learned her own worth. I forgive you, she said quietly. His head jerked up, hope flickering. Not because you deserve it, she continued, voice clear and final, but because I deserve peace. I've spent too long letting your choices define me. That ends today. This is the last time we'll ever speak. She stood, leaving him staring after her, the phone still pressed to his ear. When she stepped outside, the sky was the soft gray of early evening. Lucas waited by the car, leaning against it with quiet worry. The rival company's CEO had been arrested hours earlier. The board had collapsed under the weight of criminal charges and plummeting stock. The storm was over. They drove in silence to the penthouse terrace. The city glittered below, peaceful now. Lucas poured 2 glasses of wine and turned to her, eyes shining with something deeper than relief. I almost lost you, he said softly. Not because of them, but because I wasn't brave enough to choose you first. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate ring, vintage-inspired, with intricate details that echoed a sketch Olivia had once doodled in a notebook margin. He'd remembered. Olivia Reed, he said, voice thick. You walked into my life when I thought love was something other people had. You taught me it's worth fighting for. Will you marry me? Tears blurred her vision. Yes, she whispered, the word a sob of pure joy. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, and pulled her close. The kiss was slow, tender, full of promises kept, and futures finally within reach. The private island was a world away from everything they had known. No paparazzi, no board meetings, no lingering shadows of scandal. Just turquoise water, white sand, and the gentle rhythm of waves against the shore. For 2 weeks, Lucas and Olivia were simply themselves. They walked barefoot along the beach at sunrise, collecting shells like children. They read poetry aloud under palm trees, laughing when Lucas stumbled over the words. They swam in warm, clear water and made love under the stars, rediscovering each other without the weight of the world pressing in. Lucas learned to slow down. Olivia learned to trust that he would stay. The quiet healed the cracks that pressure had carved into their hearts. On their last evening, they sat on the terrace of their villa, watching the sun sink into the ocean in a blaze of gold and rose. Lucas took her hand, his thumb tracing slow circles over her knuckles. I could live like this forever, Olivia murmured, head resting on his shoulder. Then let's do that, he said softly. But there was an undercurrent of seriousness that made her lift her head to look at him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small velvet box he had carried with him every day since the proposal. The ring caught the dying light, sparkling like captured fire. I know we've already said yes, he began, voice low and a little unsteady. But I want to do this properly. No cameras, no headlines, just us. He opened the box. The ring was still perfect, still exactly what she would have chosen herself. Olivia Reed, he said, eyes shining. You walked into my life when I thought love was something other people got to have. You showed me it's worth every risk, every scar, every sleepless night. You've given me more than I ever knew I could have. A home, a heart that beats for someone other than myself. Will you marry me? Again? Right here, right now, in front of the ocean and the stars? Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she was smiling so widely it hurt. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger once more, then pulled her into a kiss that tasted of salt and promise. 6 months later, the wedding was nothing like the grand society event the tabloids had predicted. It was small, intimate, held in the sun-dappled garden of a historic estate, surrounded only by the people who truly mattered. Olivia's mother sat in the front row, eyes shining with pride she hadn't shown in years. Across the aisle, Eleanor Montgomery watched her son with quiet, tearful joy, finally part of the family she had once abandoned. Olivia walked down the petal-strewn path in a simple white dress that moved like water, carrying nothing but a single sunflower. Lucas waited at the end, eyes never leaving her, looking at her the way he had that first night, like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. They spoke their vows under a canopy of ancient oaks, promising to choose each other every day, through chaos and calm, through everything that had tried to tear them apart, and everything still to come. Later, as the sun set and fairy lights began to glow among the branches, Olivia stood for a moment on the edge of the garden, taking it all in, the laughter, the music, the love that filled the air like a living thing. She remembered that night at Le Ciel, the crushing humiliation, the feeling that her world was ending. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Montgomery?" Lucas murmured into her hair. She had kept Reed for her writing, but she loved the sound of his name beside hers. She turned in his arms, heart so full she thought it might burst. "I was thinking that the best moment of my life began on the night I thought it was all over." She reached up, cupping his face, love shining in her eyes. "Sometimes you have to be left so you can finally be found." He smiled, that slow, beautiful smile full of every promise they'd ever made, and kissed her. They danced under the stars, two souls who had found each other in the wreckage. And for the first time in their tumultuous lives, both Lucas and Olivia were completely, perfectly home.